some topics are just really easy to understand and explain, but the problem is you could write down everything that does explain the topic, but you don't get the full marks. These are the questions where people tend to slip up, they don't think it through properly, and it ultimately leads to their downfall. When it comes to these diagrams, they can look very off-putting. You might think, I don't know anything about blood groups, this is really hard, but let's just look at it. So let me show you how I would answer these biology questions as a grade 9 student. Are you tired of knowing the answer in biology but still getting 0 marks and not understanding the concepts in biology after reading it over and over? It just won't get into your brain. Spending hours revising for biology but having nothing to show for it when it comes to the exam? Look no further. I'm Shola and I got all grade 9s and A stars in my GCSEs, and today I'm going to be walking you through some biology questions and also how to get full marks in biology and get a grade 9. I'm going to be going through the most common and also the hardest questions asked in GCSE biology and how I would personally tackle them as a grade 9 student. Before we jump straight in, this video took a lot of work, so I would really appreciate it if you gave it a like, comment and subscribe, as well as sharing it with your friends, family, cousin, your dog, anyone. Share it with anyone that has an account and keep supporting the channel. In this video in particular, I'm going to be going through paper 1 topics. If you would like to see paper 2 topics, then definitely comment down below and I will add it to my list of videos. So let's jump straight into it. I'm going to be talking about how to get full marks in the different types of questions, the high yield topics in paper 1, and this will be applicable for AQA and other exam boards, and these are basically the topics that you need to focus on the most. And then I'm going to be talking about the grade 9 method of answering these questions, how you can get full marks, and the mistakes that students often make which prevents them from getting these full marks. Since I did AQA, these questions are going to be from the AQA exam board, but obviously this will be useful for any exam board and any student doing triple or double science. So let's jump straight into the video. I'm going to be talking about how you can get full marks in each question type. In paper 1, there are 5 main question types. The first one is multiple choice, and obviously you guys know how multiple choice works. You basically do process of elimination and you have to select the answer which is correct. The most important thing I would say is read the question properly. Try not to be tricked by the question. And on the other hand, sometimes it seems almost too easy, like it's trying to trick you and it's trying to use reverse psychology on you. But I promise you, the main thing you need to do is make sure you read the question and see what it's asking you to do. Make sure you're reading it as it is and not what you want it to say. The second type of question that I see a lot is give the definition of. And this question is actually really easy if you revise well and if you memorize your content. The best way to get full marks in these questions is to make sure that you're doing flashcards throughout your revision and you're also doing this effectively. Make sure that the definitions that you are learning are grade 9 quality. Don't be too simple. When it comes to biology, you have to be very specific. For example, let's talk about diffusion. So we all know what diffusion is. And it's not enough to say that diffusion is a movement of particles from high to low. It's better to memorize a grade 9 definition from the get-go so that you maximize your chances of getting full marks in these types of questions. So what I would say is diffusion is the movement of particles from a high to low concentration down the concentration gradient. This is just being specific, and I know it seems long, but in biology you have to go the extra mile. You have to make sure what you've written, that is your highest chance of getting full marks in that question. You can't just play things safe. And then another type of question is a 2-mark question. So these are list questions where they ask you to list different things. These are simple, just like the multiple choice. The problem is you do need to memorize the content, and in biology there is a lot of content. And if you haven't watched it already, be sure to watch my how to get a grade 9 in GCSE science video, where I basically go through how to use effective evidence-based revision methods in order for you to memorize all the content, because I can't lie to you, there is a lot. As you memorize the stuff, it's easier to get full marks in these types of questions, the simpler questions. For example, a question that they could give you is list 2 places where amylase is made, and this obviously relies on your knowledge of the digestive system. These kinds of topics do require a lot of little facts that you need to know, and so long as you do know these, the question will be very, very easy. So for me, I would say the salivary glands, and I would also say the pancreas, because these are 2 places where amylase is made. Now let's talk about the higher marked questions. These are the questions where people tend to slip up, they tend to rush, they don't think it through properly, and it ultimately leads to their downfall. So let's talk about graph questions. If you look at these questions, they seem really easy. All you have to do is draw a graph. And if you've been doing practicals, drawing a graph should be pretty easy. It should be pretty straightforward. However, there are places where students tend to slip up and make mistakes, which ultimately leads them to losing marks. And this is a place where you can easily gain marks. So you do not want to be losing marks on these types of questions. So later in the video, I'm going to be going through a graph question and we'll see how I would tackle it. So let's move on to one of the most hated types of questions, and these are explaining questions. On the face of them, they seem really easy. Like, some topics are just really easy to understand and explain, but the problem is you could write down everything that does explain the topic, but you don't get the full marks because you didn't explain it the way the mark scheme wants you to explain it, and this can be really annoying. So these types of questions can range from 2 to 6 marks, where it basically asks you to explain a topic in a logical manner. The command word explain says a lot about what you have to do in these types of questions. You have to explain it thoroughly. You can't just say something and not explain how you got to that point. Everything has to be justified. Don't jump from A to B. You have to explain how you got from A to B. So the mark schemes for these kind of questions says that grade 9 students will have a logical link from point to explanation, and it will be easy to understand the student's thought process through the answer. The answer basically won't be confused and all over the place. It won't be messy. It won't just be like you just blurted your whole brain out onto a paper. It should be very logical and concise. This is a skill that's initially hard to master, but once you practice and you continue to practice these kind of questions, it will come easy. And I will be going through this question type later in the video, so be sure to stay until then. So now I'm going to be talking about high yield topics. These are basically topics which always come up and which you really need to focus on in order to maximize your chances of getting a grade 9. And these will be for AQA, but obviously if you're doing OCR, if you're doing Excel, this will be helpful for you as well. You just have to make sure that these topics are also in your specification as well, which they probably are because they're very basic topics. So this is a disclaimer. This is not to say don't revise anything or solely focus on these topics. It is to say that these topics do come up again and again throughout the years in the past papers, so there's a high chance of it coming up in your exam. Obviously anything could come up in your paper, so you should revise everything ideally, but these are the topics where I've seen them come up again and again, and there's no chance that at least one of these will not come up on your exam. This is going to be for paper 1 in particular. So now let me tell you these topics. So magnification calculations come up a lot, and these basically use this triangle here to calculate the size of an image or the magnification. You have to know the triangle. They could ask you to calculate the magnification, the actual size, or the image size. It depends on what they want from you. Circulation comes up a lot, and this includes heart and cell type questions. So they might ask you about the blood components, they might ask you about how the heart works, how it's adapted for its function, things like this. It's really good to revise this topic. They might ask you about immunity. So these are things like cell types, viruses, antibodies, things like this. It's really good to make sure that your knowledge on this is really solid. They could ask you about anaerobic and aerobic respiration, know the difference between the two, what they are, the equations, the type of organisms that use them, etc. This is really important. Photosynthesis is also very important. It is the basis of all of the plants, and it's really important that you know the equation, you know how to balance it, you know what happens in photosynthesis and the factors that affect photosynthesis, and just all of this, because these really do help with application questions. They might just throw in this random plant and it looks really weird to just throw you off, and it might just rely on the basic knowledge of the photosynthesis equation. If you know this at the back of your head, it will be really helpful. There's also the digestive system and the enzymes, food tests. It's just little facts that you need to know, but these are really crucial when it comes to these 1 mark and 2 mark questions. And eventually these marks do add up, so you really don't want to be losing marks willy-nilly on the really easy questions, because that means that you have to gain all of your marks on the harder questions, and that is not always realistic. And another one is cell biology. And you guys know from my other video that I really hate when people focus solely on cell biology, because it is the first topic and it is the easiest topic. You really should focus on the harder topics first, but cell biology is the basis of biology, and you should know all of these off by head really quickly, and it's really easy to memorize if you do put in the work and you do try to memorize this from the start of GCSEs. So in my opinion, those are the most high yield topics, the topics which are most likely to come up. And as a disclaimer, again, please revise all of the topics. These are just the topics that I've seen come up again and again in past papers. So let me show you how I would answer these biology questions as a grade 9 student. Let's jump straight into it. So I've got my iPad here. Let's do some questions now. If you'd like to answer these questions by yourself, then pause the video, have a go, and then play it when you're ready. Let's start. So this is the first question. This is a multiple choice question, and as I said, if you don't know the answer, then it's really good to go through the process of elimination to make sure you cross out the answers that it can't be. This will ultimately improve your chances of getting the right answer. So for this this one is basically showing a leaf. It's talking about carbon dioxide entering the mesophyll cells, and it's basically asking about which two changes will increase the rate of carbon dioxide being diffused into these cells. And this is basically a diffusion question. You might think it's a plants question, but it is just about diffusion. It's basically about the factors that affect diffusion. So let's go through them. So they said a decreased number of chloroplasts in the cells. So chloroplasts doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the diffusion of carbon dioxide entering the cells. It's about how much carbon dioxide is already in the cells, and also how the carbon dioxide can even get into the cells. For example, if the stomata is closed, it's really hard for the carbon dioxide to enter the mesophyll cells. So let's look through the options. So one of the options is a decreased number of chloroplasts. So as I said, this has nothing to do with the diffusion of carbon dioxide into the cells. So I would say no. And then they would say a decreased surface area of cells in contact with the air. So obviously this is not going to increase the diffusion. As the question says, it talks about increasing the rate of the diffusion. Decrease in the surface area is going to decrease the rate of diffusion, so that is not right. An increased amount of carbon dioxide in the air. So this would increase the rate because it basically means that there's a higher concentration gradient. There's more carbon dioxide outside of the cells than there is inside of the cells, so that will make the carbon dioxide want to go inside of the cells. So I would say, yeah, that is the right answer. So we also need to find another option. So they said increased number of stomata that is open. So if more stomata are open, that means more carbon dioxide can enter the cells, and that will ultimately increase the rate of diffusion as well. So I would say yes. And then they said increased oxygen concentration in the air. So this has nothing to do with the carbon dioxide, so it will not increase the rate. That's the question done. Now let's go into this question, and this is a 4-mark explain why question. So let's look at the question where it asks us. This basically shows the internal structure of the heart. One of the heart valves are labeled. Sometimes a valve in the heart can start to leak. Explain why a person with a leaking heart valve has difficulty exercising. Sometimes some of these questions seem like they don't make sense. Like when you read them, you're like, what does that have to do with anything? It's like those questions, those memes where they talk about Sally has 2 apples, Johnny has 12 pounds, now work out the circumference of the moon. You're just thinking, how do they even get to that? Like, how am I even gonna start answering these questions? When it comes to these kind of questions, you need to breathe in, take a deep breath, and just think about it. Think about it, use common sense. Don't just rush into the question. Really look at the diagram, really think about it. How would this thing affect something else? So let's do my method of the break it down method. This is basically breaking down a question to its essentials, to the bare minimum, so that it's easier to understand and it's easier to see where they're really asking us. And using this method, you can also see what topic it's relating to. So let's highlight the key information. So when I do my questions, I always highlight the key information so that the key info stands out. It talks about heart valves, that is important, and it says it can start to leak, that is very important. Then it says, why does this affect exercising? So let's just think about it. Think about what a heart valve does. A heart valve basically prevents backflow of the blood so that the blood can efficiently pump through the heart and to the body, so the body can get enough oxygen to do what it has to do. If the valve is leaky, that means it isn't working as it should. That means it won't prevent backflow. Blood will be mixed in, deoxygenated blood and oxygenated blood will be mixing together. The heart won't be acting efficiently. What are the implications of this? This means that there's less blood pumped to the body. And if there's less blood pumped to the body, that means that there's less respiration, which is needed to create energy that you need for exercise. And to get full marks, make sure that you're specific. It's aerobic respiration that is preventing. Less aerobic respiration, less energy. What happens when the body doesn't have enough energy to meet its needs? It basically resolves this problem through anaerobic respiration. And if you know the equation for anaerobic respiration, you'll know that it produces lactic acid. This can build up in the muscles and ultimately cause muscle ache, muscle fatigue, and ultimately all of these things will make it hard to exercise. That might have seemed like a really lengthy thing to write, but if you go step by step, it really makes sense and you really understand what to do to get the 4 marks. Ideally, you want to make 4 points because it's 4 marks, and you want to explain these points as much as you can using keywords wherever you can. So be very specific when it comes to these questions. Don't jump any step in reasoning. Explain everything the way you need it to be explained. It's annoying, but even if it seems like common sense, you need to write it down. Now let's go into a 6-mark question. At first glance, this question seems like it's about cancer. In biology, there's not really a huge cancer topic, so you might think, how would I even know this? This is just asking something that they haven't taught us. But let's read the question properly. Some types of cancer can cause the number of blood components, that's important, in a person's body to fall to a dangerously low level. That's important. A person with one of these types of cancers may experience symptoms such as tiredness, frequent infections, bleeding that does not stop after after the skin is cut. Explain how a very low number of blood components in the body can cause these symptoms. This question is not asking you about cancer, it's not asking you to explain cancer, how it works. It's asking you about the blood components, and that's really important to know. This is basically relying on your knowledge of the blood cells, for example, the red blood cell, the white blood cells, platelets, and what they do. If you know what these do, then you'll know what a lack of them does, and let's go through it. So let's talk about the blood cells in the body. So we have red blood cells, we have white blood cells, we have platelets. Which one of these will relate to tiredness? So platelets won't really relate to tiredness because they're more to do with clotting after you get a cut, and that won't have anything to do with why a person is tired. White blood cells, they're to do with infection. When you get cold, when you get flu, your body fights it off with the white blood cells. That doesn't really affect tiredness. And then you also have red blood cells. And what do red blood cells do? Red blood cells deliver oxygen around the body. If you don't have as many red blood cells, that means you don't have as much oxygen going to the body. And relating back to the question we did before, that means there's less aerobic respiration and less energy, which is why a person might feel tired. So that is 2 marks out of the 6 marks done. Now let's talk about the next point, which is frequent infections. Frequent infections, that is because of the lack of white blood cells. I'm going to be using abbreviations just to write quickly, but in your actual exam, please write things in full. Less white blood cells means less antibodies will be produced. Antibodies are things that basically recognize the foreign pathogens in your body, and they basically make sure that the immune system destroys them. If you have less antibodies in your body, that means less pathogens will be killed, and ultimately that will mean frequent infections. Now the final point basically talks about bleeding that will not stop after the skin is cut. And what cell does this remind you of? We only have platelets left. Platelets are the reason why your skin stops bleeding after a cut. They travel to the site of the cut and ultimately release factors which will lead to the blood clotting in this place, and then will stop the bleeding eventually. So if you have less platelets, that means less clotting, or it takes longer to clot. So that's how you can easily get 4 marks in a 6-mark question. It really isn't that hard if you apply this method. So in the mark scheme, it says to get a level 3, which is 5 to 6 marks in this question, you have to make sure that you have relevant points, and this includes reasoning for the points, and you have to make sure that they're given in detail and that they're logically linked. So don't jump from A to B, explain how you got there. Don't have the assumption that examiners will know that the platelet causes clotting, so you don't need to mention it. Please mention every single thing. Even if it seems like, oh, it's common sense, examiner's gonna know this, let me just skip a few corners. But please, for your own sake, just write it down. It won't hurt you to write it down. Remember that you can't get negative marks, so it's better to write as much as you can. At the same time, don't start writing rubbish just to get 4 marks. It's not going to help your case. So now let's go to part 2 of this question. This question basically talks about how these people can get a blood transfusion, and this is when a patient receives blood from a donor, and that's really important, a donor. Different people have different blood groups. So this figure basically shows red blood cells found in people in different blood groups and the antibodies that can be made by these people. So we have a diagram, and when it comes to these diagrams, they can look very off-putting. You might think, I don't know anything about blood groups, this is really hard, but let's just look at it. It honestly just relies on common sense and just using your process of reasoning. Blood type A, they have these kind of triangle type antigens. They call these type A antigens. Blood type B, they have these rectangle antigens, and they call this type B. And then blood group O doesn't have any type of antigen. So if you look at group A, they have anti-B antibodies. These will ultimately block the blood type B antigen. And it's the same with blood type B. They have anti-A antibodies. So these will basically attack the blood type A. So if you give someone with a blood type A, blood type B, that means the body will recognize these blood cells as foreign and will attack them. So it's not good to mix around blood type. And blood type O, they don't have any antigens. So that means if you give blood type O to anyone, it should be fine. Like, it shouldn't really do anything because there's nothing on the surface that can be recognized by the antibodies. But the thing is that they do have anti-A and anti-B antibodies, so that means you can't give them A or B. They talk about how antibodies bind to antigens that have complementary shape, and we basically just went through that. When antibodies bind to the antigens on the red blood cells, many red blood cells begin to come together. Each red blood cell is about 8 micrometers in diameter, and many capillaries have the internal diameter of 10 micrometers. And then the question basically tells you that it's dangerous for people with type A blood to be given type B blood, and explain why this is the case. We basically just talked it through. We basically just understood the question through the diagram. If someone with type A blood is to be given type B blood, that means that their body will reject these. So the antibodies, which are the anti-B antibodies, will bind to the blood type B. And something that you might think is, why did they give us numbers? Why did they give us 8 micrometers and 10 micrometers? Let's just talk about if there's 2 red blood cells that clot, that means it will be 16 micrometers in total, and the capillary is only 10. So that means that if you have even 2, the capillaries are going to block. And if the capillaries block, what does that mean? The capillaries blocking will mean that oxygen doesn't get to the cells. The person cannot carry out respiration, cells can't respire, and that's really dangerous. So that's the answer. So now let's move on to graph questions. So graph questions can be really easy because ideally you've been drawing graphs since you were in year 7, so this shouldn't be anything new. The problem is that they do want these graphs to be a grade 9 quality. They do want them to have specific things, and if you don't have these things, then they won't give you all the marks. They are trying to catch you out in this question, and you can actually lose easy marks through just simple mistakes, and that's just really annoying. When it comes to these types of questions, you have to do the following things. Make sure that both of the axes are labeled with their units. So let's go through this. This is basically a photosynthesis question, and they want you to draw the graph for the information that they've given you. So let's label the y-axis. They even tell you to do it in the question, so don't miss that out. They put temperature on the x-axis, so that means that what must be on the y-axis is the rate of photosynthesis, and that is in centimeters cubed per hour. The scale of the graph must be suitable, so this means that you don't jump units. It has to, each square has to be worth the same amount. So if you look at the data before you start to answer the question, the maximum that it goes up to is 44. So it's very important that you make sure that the graph at least goes to 44. So it has to go from 0 to 44 at the minimum. So let's see how many big squares there are. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Alright, that's enough squares for us to jump in 5s. If we go from 5, 10, 15, 20, and so on, I would say that that is a suitable scale. And then you also have to make sure that you plot the points as accurately as you can, especially if they end in decimals. So if they end in decimals, you want to make sure that they're in between the lines. They're not on a line, but they're in between 2 points. So let me just go through this quickly. Let's just ignore the x because you were supposed to calculate the mean in the previous question, but I didn't want to go through that question, so we're just going to write down all of the other data points. Okay, so I would say that it's pretty accurate. The next thing that you want to do is make sure that the line of best fit is a straight line. It isn't from point to point. That is a mistake that some people tend to make in their exams, where they'll draw it from point to point like this, and that is not what they want you to do. What they want you to do is basically to draw a line of best fit. If you don't know what a line of best fit is, it's basically a line that describes the overall trend that is going on. And the best way to think about this is to make sure that there's an equal number of crosses above the line and an equal number of crosses below the line, as much as you can. But obviously for this you can't, because there's 5 points. I'm just gonna roughly draw it. Obviously in your exam you want to be more precise with this. As you can see, there are 3 crosses above the line and 2 crosses below the line. Ideally you'd want equal numbers, but since it's 5 you can't have equal numbers. If you do all of these things that I've explained, you will get 5 out of 5 marks in all of your graph questions. It's just making the effort to make sure you include all of these things and doing them correctly that will help you to get the grade 9 in these questions. So guys, those are all of the questions I'm going to go through today. I hope you found the video useful, and I hope you learned something new from it. And if you'd like to see me answer more questions, whether in biology, math, or any other subjects, be sure to comment down below and I will definitely add it to my list of videos. And also be sure to share this video with anyone that you know that will find it helpful, whether it's a family member, a friend, anyone. It really helps support my channel. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.